I think we all expect the drains on our energy to be these big, loud things. So there are some silent energy drains that are things like moving across country, getting married, being in a big project, getting divorced, giving birth, someone around us being sick or dying. Like there are definitely some things that authors, when they coach with me, will say, "Hey, Becca, I'm not sure why I'm so tired," and then proceed to say, I have 5 kids, they're all in school, or I'm homeschooling someone, or I'm moving across the country, or I got a new job, or etc. And I'll be like, well, that's it. That's the problem. Like, that's why you don't have the kind of energy you used to, is something changed, and you're just not conscious of the fact that your exchange rate has changed. But there are some even more silent energy drains or leaks in your energy pennies that might be happening. And since we're in this little mini series on energy pennies, I'm just going to keep talking about these drains until you're all sick of me talking about them. So let's jump into this episode and see what the silent energy drains are all about. Here we go. Okay, my name is Becca Syme, and I am the host of the Quitcast for authors or the Quitcast for writers. I can never be sure which one it is. I am an author success coach. And what that essentially means is it's my job to understand why things happen in author life. So, why am I not having this success that I want? Why am I having this success? And how do I get more of it? Why has it not happened for me yet? What's going on here? Why am I stuck? Why are things not working? Those kinds of questions, it becomes my obsession to try to understand why these things are happening so I can help authors be more aligned. Spoiler alert, if you've never been here before, my assumptions are always that everybody's very different. And the reasons why different people are stuck or different people are struggling or whatever is going to be completely different based on who they are, based on their environment, based on the systems that they're living in, whatever it is. But everybody's got different sets of things that are happening in their lives that make them be who they are and make their decisions be different. So while it might be nice and easy to produce a podcast that's just 10 ways to get unstuck and 10 things of this and 5 easy ways to make 6 figures and etc., it would be so nice for me to be able to just deliver content like that because I think that's a lot of what people want to hear right now. But the reality is, I'm looking for very specific things that we can tweak, change, add, subtract that will make our lives either better or easier, help us have more success. But ultimately, my goal is to have more peace, security, and stability because I don't think we realize that that's what a lot of us are shooting for when we're trying to orient our lives towards success. We think that we want the New York contract. We think that we want the fans. We think that we want the money. But what we actually want is security or stability or peace or the knowledge that I have done everything that I could do or that I'm doing it correct or whatever it is that we're looking for. But it's often not the actual thing that we want, it's something completely different. We talked just a little bit in the past about the anchors and the magnets that make us either hold us back because we're very afraid of something happening or not happening, or that we move towards them because we really want something to happen. And so there's some of that that's at play in how it individualizes. We work a lot with Claire Taylor and her Enneagram work, and we do Clifton Strengths personality work as well. But these silent energy drains, they might appeal to some people very specifically for personality reasons, but they will often be common among many personality traits. So I'm going to do something that I don't usually do, which is talk in a more general sense about things. I'll try to keep the customization to a minimum this time. We'll see if it happens. As always, the Becca drinking game is anytime I say it depends, we all take a drink. I'm probably going to say that at least a couple of times today, but I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum because I do think that these things are more likely to be in common with multiple different types of personalities of people, and it's why I chose them. So let's jump into them. So, what are the four? I guess I picked four for some reason. What are the four most silent energy drains among writers right now? Let's talk about it. Number one, is input overload. And I know a lot of us feel like we don't know enough or we can't know enough. And that's actually a fear that we need to address. Like we might need to do some work on our Enneagram desire or fear. We might need to do some work in therapy, in parts work or something to handle that fear. But a lot of us are doing input overload because we are scared of not having the information. But input overload in particular causes a type of energetic overwhelm that I just don't think most of us are conscious of. We cannot find a specific piece of information that we want to find, but we don't realize that what we actually want is just to feel okay. We just want to feel like I've done what I can do. I've done enough for today. I understand as much as I possibly can for right now. There will be more understanding in the future. There's more opportunity for me to find more things. If I really need something, it will come to me. Those types of things, right? So the more that we believe, and this is again is sort of a mindset shift, the more that we believe that we don't have it, that it's not here, that we need to strive, we need to look, we don't, like we can't find it. All of those things create more and more fear and lack in us, and that causes more stress, which again we talked about in a previous episode, makes the exchange rate go up so that it makes it more difficult for self-care alone to make us replenish our energy. And it means we eventually are headed for an unsustainable life. Like we cannot continue to operate that way. So if you're operating that way for a specific reason, because you're trying to launch something or learn something, or you're in a course and you feel like you don't know enough because you're in the process of gathering information for a very specific purpose, that's completely different. This input overload energy drain is silent energy drain is an over time. Nothing ever feels like enough. I never feel like I can consume enough. There's always more information out there. The downside, especially those of us who are higher input or learner, context, strategic, uh, achiever, competitions, things like that in the Clifton strengths, the downside is that there always is more information out there. There are always new things that we haven't learned. It may take us a lot more time and energy to find them because we have consumed so much of what's out there. But there is always a new video to scroll to. There is always a new thing that you can consume. The problem is the input has become its own source of dopamine hits, its own source of the happy chemicals in our head. But we aren't closing loops with the information. When we take something in, we're saving videos in these large collections. We are sending ourselves reminders of, well, if this ever happens, you'll now have this video at your fingertips, and yet we're not consuming them and putting them into action. The majority of the content that we consume right now is not stuff that we are acting on. It's just more information we're taking in because we don't realize that we're suffering from input overload, that feeling that there's just so much out there that I can't take it in fast enough. So I keep trying to take in and take in and take in, but I don't realize that I'm not actually taking action on anything that I'm learning. So for the people who are in input overwhelm, I need you to practice more silence. That's going to frustrate some of you because you need to think more. You need to process. You need more space, more silence. You need some input free zones. You need to put the phone down. You need to shut the computer. You need to walk away. You need to have conversations with people that don't involve screens, right? Like on some level, we need to increase our real life input taking in, see something outside, look at the birds, talk to a person, go shopping, walk around, whatever it is that we do that is outside of our screen life, right? Maybe you listen to this on audio instead of listening to, or instead of sitting down and watching it on video so that you can start being more present to the world around you, things like that. But what we don't recognize is that needing to take in so much information when I've already taken it in is one of the signals that I'm suffering from input overwhelm because I'm not taking action on the things that I take in. And one of the things that Roland and I have started doing recently, which has been really cool, is we used to just like either listen to a podcast or watch a television show and sort of like, let's just watch a bunch of this, or like, let's just consume a bunch of this. And now we're slowing down and we're talking about it. And one of the rhythms that we've gotten into lately, which has been really cool, it's been so great for me, is that we're watching the How I Met Your Mother. It's called How I Made Your Mother podcast, and then we'll watch the episode and then we'll talk about it. Like the screens go away, we shut everything down. We're just engaged in a conversation with each other. We're trying to encourage critical thinking and intellecting. We both have high intellection. We're trying to be more present without a screen present, right? We might be on our phone. We might not be in terms of like if we're at a distance, we still have to talk to each other on the phone, but we're not sitting still behind a screen trying to be, have that parasocial part of the relationship be present, because I was recognizing in myself that I don't tend to slow down and consume. I go from one episode to the next episode to the next episode. So, something I'm going to encourage you to do if you're suffering from input overwhelm with this episode is I want you to write something down that you're going to do as you hear it over the course of the episode. Write something down that you're going to do. And then when you finish the episode, close the computer, shut the phone off, go talk to somebody about this, go do the thing that I encouraged you to do, go be physically present somewhere that doesn't involve a screen, and get out into the space where life happens. Make life happen elsewhere other than being in a digital arena, other than being in a digital space. If we don't address the input overwhelm, if we don't unsubscribe from newsletters, if we don't get off of our paid subscriptions, some of us have 15 or 16 or 17 paid subscriptions. And what we are not doing is actively consuming. And I get this on my Patreon all the time. People will say, there's too much information. It's not for me right now. And I'm like, excellent. This is great curating. If you're not feeling like my information is ever helping you, or you're just not in a space where you want to do strengths development right now, you're not in a space where you want to think about your writing career in the way that I think about it right now, this might be a good time to say, okay, Becca, it's been really great. I might come back sometime in the future. I might not. Thank you so much. I'm going to close down this source and just understand that that is what we should be doing naturally. If something is not being helpful for us, if we're not engaged in it, just having it there in case we may need it at some point is a form of fear in itself. And I want to make sure that we are executing, make sure that we're trying to move forward every time we consume something, rather than getting caught up in input overwhelm and having no silence and no space, no process, no action. Like, I just want to see us be more active in the way that we consume things, especially when it comes to stuff like reels, TikTok videos, social media algorithm stuff. Like, I want to see us disconnect as often as possible. The shorter you can keep your times of engagement on social media, and then the more you can go and be active elsewhere, the happier I will be as a success coach. Okay, number two, this silent leak that I often see in people is overcommitting because they're afraid of what happens if they don't overcommit. And very specifically, when I started working with Claire Taylor and the work she does with Enneagram, and started realizing just how much of my life was being controlled by being afraid of what happens if I don't do something. And I was so conscious of how much I wanted to change that. And over the last few years, have done a lot of work to change those things, and also still have more work to do. That's fine. But I'm so much less fear driven than I used to be. And it just makes me feel so happy to be so disconnected from things that I used to be so afraid of. And it feels amazing to be in that space. And also, it was a lot of work. I'm not going to say it wasn't. But the way that I would constantly be overcommitting and overcommitting and overcommitting to a point where I felt like I couldn't ever say no to anything. And that overcommitment because of fear will often feel like, yeah, I have to do that. Yeah, I have to do this. Well, of course I have to do this. Of course I can't say no to that person. Of course, of course. And that feeling of there is a silent underneath the surface fear that if I don't do it, something is wrong. Either I'm going to be punished, I'm not going to be safe, I'm going to miss an opportunity, etc. And I don't think we realize that something that you can't replicate, Like you can't just say yes forever. You're going to burn out for sure. And again, ask me how I know. We talked about this in a previous episode. But if you can't do it forever, it is not sustainable. And therefore, we need to work on creating a life that is absent that thing. So if I am not willing to acknowledge that I am doing something out of a fear of it being wrong if I don't, right? Then that's the first step. Then I need to learn more about what that looks like. You can listen to Sarah Baldwin, you can listen to Thais Gibson, you can listen to Claire Taylor. There are so many people out there who can talk to you about that. But once you have acknowledged, hey, I know that I do this, then that becomes the thing that we want to work on changing. So many of us who are in the middle of that process need to work on being more regulated. We need to work on keeping ourselves out of environments that are triggering that in us, that kind of thing. Because the more I can say, my time is my own, I have agency here, I'm doing things that I want to be doing that are sustainable for me to do, the more peaceful we feel. It's going to mean some uncomfortability. But the good news is that when we are afraid of that discomfort, especially relationally, it's almost always based on something that we just need to heal, right? It isn't, there are exceptions where it is definitely based in an ongoing active pattern that we need to be afraid of. But if you work with your therapist on it, they will be able to determine if that's the case for you or not. And what I see so consistently is it's much better for us to wade in and heal those places than to continue to overcommit and have an unsustainable life, especially because there are so many systems around us that want to feed off of us. And that feeding off of us costs us something. But usually the feeding off of us comes because we are experiencing consistently that friction of my life isn't as happy as I want it to be. My life isn't as fulfilling as I want it to be, etc. So we're constantly striving to make it more and more so, but we don't realize that a lot of that striving is coming out of a fear response place. So my favorite places again are Thais Gibson and Sarah Baldwin. If you're into the Enneagram stuff, jump in there. You can look at Claire Taylor's work. You can do the Beatrice Chestnut books, whatever works the best for you. I think that's has been extremely helpful for me. So that is a silent drain. I know not everybody wants to hear that, but that would be my preference. Okay. So, third silent drain, because I think this is one that maybe is less negative than the others, is skipping either a gratitude practice or a regular security practice, like a positive repetition practice. What I don't mean here is I don't mean fake it till you make it or say that things are positive when they're not, or be grateful to someone or something that you don't believe as you owe gratitude to. I don't mean any of those things. I mean organize this. Again, it depends on everyone's differences, how you're going to do this. And let me take a drink. But all I'm trying to produce in you is the positive feeling. It's different than happiness. It's different than hopefulness. It's different than security. But there is a positive feeling that gratitude produces that is, I acknowledge that there is something outside myself or someone outside myself that I owe something to, owe gratitude to, owe thanks to, owe whatever. Could be a person, could be God, could be the universe, could be nature. To me, I mean, I have personal preferences about how I do this in my own life because of what my own personal beliefs are, but I'm not interested in prescribing that for somebody else. What I am interested in is the exchange between you and something outside yourself that is positive. When I had a cat, I was extremely grateful to him for being part of my life because he provided something for me that I have since realized, like ever since he died, I have realized that I need so much more than I thought I did. And I was always grateful to him. I mean, apart from the times that he would annoy me, but even then I was still grateful. He was amazing. Best cat ever. Um, but now that he's not in my life anymore, I recognize that gratitude of, wow, that was a big gift that he gave me, and he gave it unselfishly. Yes, he appreciated it that I took care of him and that I, cleaned up his litter box and things like that. But it wasn't a quid pro quo thing. It was so generous, like it was so present. And he was such an amazing animal. And that is an outside of me thing that is a source of something positive, beneficial, secure, producing that I don't think we honestly understand how much we need this. We need each one of the four positive emotions in the positive emotion cycle for different reasons. We need happiness for a different reason than we need gratitude, but we have to be able to acknowledge that there are things, people, forces, beings outside of ourselves that we owe gratitude to for giving us something, whatever it is that they give us. And I understand if some of you want to push back against that, totally fine with it. But I'm saying from a psychological perspective, there is a difference between happiness, which is that core happiness emotion, which has a lot of, other ancillary emotions inside of it, positivity, things like that, glad, etc. Joy, joy is separate for me, but happiness versus hopefulness, which is a looking forward to something, right? And all of the ancillary emotions included in that large pyramid. And then security, which is a whole set of emotions of its own. Gratitude is a specific set of emotions. The reason that I'm hitting this so hard is that a lot of us will feel happiness more naturally. We will feel that, oh, that's pretty. Oh, how beautiful. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I love that. Like many of us will feel that just naturally because we are experiencing it inside of ourselves and it makes us feel glad to have that happen, right? It makes us feel happy. But gladness or happiness is one subset, and I want us to practice feeling gratitude more often. And very specifically, I want us to only feel gratitude for things we really feel grateful for. I don't want us to pretend to feel grateful. So, this silent drain for me is not understanding the role that each of these positive emotions plays in our lives and not intentionally trying to feel them. I think there are a lot of us who naturally trend towards like the developers, the positivities, the seven Enneagrams, the adaptabilities, whatever. Like, I think there are some of us who naturally trend in that direction and we understand the benefits of that. But then it gets into this quote unquote toxic positivity space that I want to avoid us being in. I don't want to ignore anything negative or difficult. I don't want to ignore anything that is dangerous or that we should feel insecure about or afraid of or angry, sad about. All I want to do is also find the positive places in addition to all of that so that we can have a balance of both. Because for me, I think it's important to have the reality of the negative emotions be fully present because they're productive and they lead us to places. But where they lead us to is the full expression of the positive emotion cycle. So for me, I think it's very easy for us when it's visible, a lot of negative things and difficult things are visible for us. It's easy for us to forget these four positive emotions. And specifically, the gratitude is the one that I see the most often neglected. And I think there's a lot of sort of aphorisms and truisms that get thrown around, like do 10 gratitudes and whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm not as interested in the number. I'm not really that interested in tracking it or writing it down or saying it out loud or any of that stuff. All I'm interested in is you feeling the feeling. That's all I'm interested in. I want you to be able to acknowledge that a person or an animal or a being or a force outside of yourself has done something beneficial, that you reaped beneficial consequences from, that you acknowledge that that transaction has happened. That's all I want. So, however that happens, I would like you to practice it as often as you possibly can. Because I feel like what gets lost in a lot of our fears about what may be coming or happening, the drains that happen, focusing on what's going wrong, focusing on what we don't have, is that we forget to focus on what is positive and present, what we do have, what is great, and that attention that constantly gets paid, especially those of us who want more than what we currently have. The attention that constantly gets paid in that direction can be demotivating for us without us realizing it. Not practicing gratefulness can actually make us more frustrated, and we don't even realize it because we're constantly looking forward to this thing that's going to make us feel this feeling. And we don't realize that if you can't practice that feeling in the moment, you're not going to practice it when it is bigger need for it, right? When you have been given a bigger thing and not necessarily given through no work of your own. Those of you who've done things like hit the New York Times or hit the USA Today list, we talk about luck a lot as though luck is the reason. It's not the reason, it's a factor. The reason, one of the reasons may be your hard work, it may be the good book you wrote, etc. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't still feel some level of gratitude for the transaction that has happened. And the reason I say this is I see a lot of people who are doing the hard work and making the thing happen, and they're not getting that transaction back for whatever reason. Luck and timing is usually the biggest part of it. So they have reached out to the person isn't reaching back. They've done the thing, they're not seeing the result. They've put in the hard work, they're not getting the money, they're not getting the accolades, etc. So those of us who are getting it, we think, well, of course I am. I've done this work. And I'm like, yes, but there's also an element of a transaction that has happened where something or someone or somewhere somehow decided or gave or allowed or whatever. I don't know what the language is exactly that I would use, but that penny dropped in the slot and it happened the way that it was supposed to, when for many other people it doesn't happen the way it's supposed to. So I'm not saying make it up, I'm not saying create it or fake it. I'm saying when it happens and you acknowledge that it happens, it helps you to have a respect for the fact that it has happened. It doesn't make you suddenly have glowing goldenness around you or anything like that, but the regular practice of that acknowledgement will help you in the future as you start to need more and more security. It helps us in the future to recognize the smaller and smaller ways in which people and nature and the world and life and God and the universe and everything are doing all of these things that benefit us in some way, that we are getting something good out of. And it helps us to acknowledge that relationship. And I know that I'm high connectedness, but I see this lack or dearth in people. And I just want to say, have you tried expressing gratitude to people, to things, I express gratitude to food for tasting good. I may not be a person who believes in God and I may not express it to God, or I may express it to the universe, or I may not. I may express it to the farmer who made it. I may express it to the baker who created it. Thank you. I may still have paid the money. It does not preclude me from feeling grateful. And I just don't think we understand how much that gratitude lubricates the entire world. Like it just makes the world work effectively. That acknowledgement that I am not a whole contained on unto my unit unto myself. I need other people. I need other things. I need forces. I need other things besides myself. And I know I'm getting into some real deep philosophical and potentially dangerously theological waters for some people. And I'm not trying to encourage us to have conversations about that. I'm not trying to give people a green light to try to make other people believe what they believe. That is not what I'm here for. What I am here for, though, is the acknowledgement that at its base level, there is something beneficial about that feeling. So do it more. Thank you all for being here. Like, my gratitude to people who watch this podcast or listen to this podcast, my gratitude to people who show up for coaching sessions, my gratitude to people who listen to me talk at workshops or who buy books or who back Kickstarters is not in vain. I recognize that I would not exist. I wouldn't, if no one listened to me, it wouldn't matter how beneficial or helpful the things were that I was saying. I'm grateful to everyone who listens to me, to everyone who shares anything, to everyone who disagrees with me, to everyone who wants to prove me wrong about something, because that means that we are engaging in the process that we're supposed to be engaging in. And that interaction is making the lubrication of the world work correctly, the way that it's supposed to. And if we had more of that, the world would work better. Okay, I'm going to stop because I recognize that I'm getting into connectedness territory here, and I want to be more focused on trying to fix some of these silent drains that we don't recognize. But a huge silent drain in people's lives is a lack of positive emotion cycle work. And I focus more on gratitude because I think it's one of the more important skipped steps in the process. But happiness is also important. Hopefulness is also important. Security is also important. Those four main primary color emotions for me, I think we need more of them. So I'm going to stop now and move on to drain number four, the last one, which is, yikes, having unrealistic expectations. I don't think that we realize how much it drains us to expect someone to act in a fair way when they don't, for someone to act like for scammers. This is a big one I see in the industry. How could they do this? How could this person do this? And I want to say, well, I mean, I could explain to you why they thought that that was a reasonable, logical thing to do. I could explain to you why it's happening. I don't think that's going to help you though, because I don't think you actually want to know why. I think you're trying to express a frustration, like this shouldn't be happening. And I agree with you. It shouldn't be happening. And also, me getting caught in the frustration cycle or the fear cycle or the sadness cycle is not helping me. So if I see someone doing something that I don't think they should be doing, I do want to ask, do I have any ability to impact that person? Because if I do, by all means, let's stay in that feeling until I can figure out how to have an impact on that person. But if I can't have an impact on that person and all I'm doing is getting frustrated and staying in the frustration loop because somebody's pirating or cheating or doing something that they shouldn't be doing, that I don't have a direct impact on and I can't do anything about, it's not helping me to stay caught in those loops. And again, I know this is like an emotional cycle thing, but the negative emotion cycle is a big drain that I don't think people recognize. And I see it happen the most with the unrealistic expectations that cause emotions. It makes me feel angry that someone, and I'll use myself as an example. Whenever people give advice about writing to market, I used to get so livid, like to a point where I would actually feel like I would have be like, my blood pressure medication is going to kick in any second here because I'm getting so frustrated. So I got to relax myself and drink some water and take a deep breath and whatever. But then I kept allowing myself to get frustrated about this. But I had this unrealistic expectation I did not realize was driving this anger that was getting tagged every single time I would see someone doing this, because I wanted there to always be two sides to the story, right? I wanted to be like, well, some of you are not wired to write to market effectively. You're much more wired to write intuitively. And then that will make you write books that are marketable. But nobody talks about that because everybody's always talking about intentionally writing to market. So I do everything I can to spread that message everywhere, and it still doesn't permeate some places. And I would get so frustrated by it. And then I had to acknowledge I am allowing myself to be frustrated by something that I don't have any direct access to, that I can't change. All I can continue doing is the work that I am doing, trying to make inroads where I allow people to think that there's a different option from this very bounded way of thinking that is, this is right and that's wrong, and you are wrong if you think that way, to instead think, is it possible that some people write to market and that's good, and some people don't write to market and that's good? And we have to deconstruct this idea that there is only one way to do this job, and we need to have a more open and mind and a more understanding way of living in this industry with each other, with all these rules that keep getting tossed around, right? I've been trying to deconstruct things in this industry since 2014. And it has been one of the core motivations of my life to make sure that that happens for people. But then if I have an unrealistic expectation that because I have said at a conference, on a Quitcast, I've written partially written chapters and books about it. I'm not going to say I've written a book because I'm actually working on a book about it, but I haven't released that book yet. I've talked about it. I have ranted about it. I post on social media about it. And still, there are people who either don't believe it or haven't heard it yet. And it's unrealistic of me to think that just because I speak it and it is true, that everyone should just immediately believe it. That's an unrealistic expectation. I can certainly hold that expectation, but then all I'm going to be doing is getting frustrated about it all the time and going to 11 about it all the time. And it just was not helpful for me to be that way. So I started going through the negative emotion cycle about that expectation when I would feel it. And then the goal from there became, how do I remind myself when I start to get into that cycle rather than let myself have to go all the way through it? So now I'm trying to say, to remind myself, well, not everybody believes that. Not everybody thinks that way. I'm not going to try to waste my time changing the mind of someone who doesn't think that way, especially because and again, there are places where this is not the case, but especially because in the case of writing to market, it's actually really good for some people to do that. It is the way they're making their money. They're excellent at it. They should be doing it. But just because they should be doing it doesn't mean everyone should be doing it. And it also doesn't mean that the people who are talking about it shouldn't be talking about it. And this is where I had to get to my in my own head. And some of you have heard me say this before out loud, because I will often say this to myself, like, my QTP admonition is not for the speakers. It's not for the speakers to say, well, you can write to market or you cannot write to market. No, people who want to preach write to market get to say that. That is their job. That's what they're here to do. And then it's my job as a consumer to say, hey, if I'm a right to market person, I've taken that advice and it's worked for me. Great, let me do that. If I've tried before, though, and it hasn't worked, instead of assuming, well, I got to figure out how to write to market because clearly I'm doing this author thing wrong because, quote, everyone good is writing to market. They are not, by the way, PS. Um, it's my job as a consumer of information to say, maybe the way I'm wired is right. Maybe being different is correct. And maybe I don't need to listen to them or care about what they say. Maybe they're not the boss of everyone. Maybe it's okay to talk back to that, like question the premise, right? That's just the very nature of that admonition, QTP, question the premise, is we're all different. It depends, right? If you can't see me, I'm holding up my water glass and drinking. It depends. That is the essence of QTP. We're not all the same. We can't all act and believe and think the same about this industry. It's just not going to be possible. And if you are losing time and losing energy and being more stressed because other people don't do things the way you do it, and therefore you think there's something wrong with you, my goal in talking about this silent drain is to say, hey, maybe we let you be who you are and let them be who they are. And maybe we just decide that it's okay for people to write to market or not write to market. And again, I am excerpting this for industrial advice and information. Once we get outside of that, then there are different rules that apply in terms of how we should handle it. I'm still a fan of question the premise, but also I recognize there's difference there. But when we are talking about the drains of unrealistic expectations, in particular about this industry, in particular about the way money is made, in particular about the way things should be happening, the goal is always to say, we need to stay present to our desire to keep going. And a lot of times, our unrealistic expectations, the more we hold to them, the more we think it should be happening in a particular way, it impacts our desire to keep going. And we have to protect that at all costs. So, my goal in helping us to deconstruct some of the unrealistic expectations is not to say, don't want things, don't want more, don't be interested in learning new things, etc. It's to say, when it's not working and you're becoming stressed about it, let's let it go. Let's release it. Start believing something different. Reprogram your brain to think different things. Like, take in new information, question the premise, because it's just possible that the way you are doing it is correct. The way you are writing already intuitively is correct, that there is no need for you to change things, that your intuition is right. It's possible, right? And I want us to have that moment of, I am unstressed. I'm making this decision because it's what I want to do. I'm making this decision because I think it's what will be the best for me. And whether or not I get the right outcome, like whether or not I get the result that I'm hoping to get, I am not dependent on that result happening or else. That's the place that we need to be really cautious about. That's resulting, right? So we just want to be as cautious as we can about resulting. We're going to talk about that in a different episode because I do think that's also a very important conversation to have. But this silent drain of unrealistic expectations are getting caught in that negative emotion cycle and not being willing to get all the way to what can I do about this right now? And if I can't do anything about this right now, then I need to regulate and move on so that I can be ready for when I can do something about it. Right. Because I actually have opportunities to talk to people about writing to market, but not if I am so burned out and stressed by trying to be vigilant about every single person's thinking about how they worry about writing to market and not writing to market. I will not have the energy to do the talk that I need to do, or the Quitcast, or the travel, or the conference, or the conversation, or the podcast, if I don't allow myself to disconnect from it sometimes, to pull back, to not be vigilant about it, to say, I need to do the thing that I can do. I have a particular job to do in this situation, and it is not to be responsible for every single person in the industry. And again, to put this in a different context about a writer, right? It is not my job to believe that there's only one shot. It's not true that I could never fail. It's not true. All of that is stuff that fear is telling me. So I want to do as much regulation work as I possibly can. And I'm looking at the clock because we are way longer than I expected than we would be in this episode. But let me end here. Again, a quick reminder, because we were talking about input overwhelm. Pull one thing from this talk that you can put into action. And I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions. If you are in input overload, I want you to take one day a week off of all inputting: newsletters, social media, news, everything. Just take one day off a week and experiment with it and see how it goes. Maybe take more days off. Maybe take all mornings off. Maybe take all nights off. But just take one day off a week and give yourself a rest from the input overload. The second option is to do something every time you consume something. So instead of just consuming video after video after video about how to do these things, watch a video, go do the thing. Come back later, watch another video, go do the thing. Listen to the podcast, do the thing. Don't just queue up another podcast. Don't just take in more information. Do a thing, execute on it. That's what I want us to get in the habit of doing if we have input overwhelm. Overcommitting from fear, say no. That's my goal. Say no the next time somebody asks you to do something. It'll be uncomfortable. We talked about this in a previous episode. The gratitude, express gratitude to someone. You can express gratitude to me if you want to in the comments. You don't have to even be grateful for me. You can tell me you're grateful for something else. I'm great. I love listening to gratitude. It's amazing. Spank your unrealistic expectations by reminding yourself to go through the negative emotion cycle. I want to get to the point, if I get angry, what can I do about this in the moment? I want to get to the point where I can acknowledge, what am I angry? What am I sad? What am I afraid? And then what is the thing I can do about that? When I feel that fear, what's the thing I can do right now? If the only option is, well, there's nothing I can do, so I got to shut down my inbox, shut my email off, shut down social media, shut off the news, do whatever, and go do the thing. Shut off the podcast, close the newsletter, go do the thing. Stop the Substack, stop the Patreon, go do the thing. That's your job today. So close down this podcast, wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Go do the thing right now. I'll see you on the next podcast. Bye, everybody.